So, Nina, you spent a lot of time in hospitals over the years, both as a professional and a partner. And today we're diving into something incredibly important: identity and integrity while being ill and next of kin, because this is something we've talked a lot about over the years. You said something the other day that stuck with me, and that's how many days you spent in one of those awful hospital chairs beside the bed. What did you say? Maybe a year in total, or maybe more?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me if I'd spent a year in those chairs.
Yeah.
I think I've studied my hands and nails more than most people and look out the window seeing nothing more than the next building or, yeah. And those hospital chairs should be banned, honestly, or upgraded at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode is about more than just those long hours. It's about the importance of next of kin care in hospitals and also patient care in general. And also about how some people meet you when you're ill. Because over the years, I've seen and experienced the good, the bad, and the really indifferent. And the way both patients and their loved ones are treated, it matters deeply.
Can you just explain how the chair looks like? Just so that, you know, we can get an idea. Because maybe it's different in different
Yeah,
countries, you know?
it's this wooden chairs with a plastic seat and back,
Okay, so it's
you know.
just like a regular kind of kitchen chair. It's not like a recliner that you can recline and lean back and sleep.
No, no. Some hospitals
Upside
have
down chair.
those. Yeah.
Okay. Just
Hmm.
wanted an explanation.
Of course. Badge chairs.
Yes. This is an important one for sure, and not just for healthcare workers. I think, as you say, for everyone, friends, family, even strangers can learn from this. We're all going to face illness and hospitals at some point, whether it's ourselves or someone close to us. And some of you work there also. And how we meet each other in those moments, they say a lot.
Yes. And first of all, I must say, next of kin need to be acknowledged, seen, and included while they're standing beside someone who's sick. I've experienced both sides of that as a family member or next of kin and a nurse. And I know this can be hard as a nurse to meet grieving and scared family members. But I must say, it's honestly shocking how invisible you can feel as the person who's constantly there, holding the hand, remember the meds, and asking the questions.
Yeah, we all remember that nurse who said, "Do I look like a magician to you?" And
Hmm.
somehow managed to make you feel like a nagging, overbearing relative when all you were doing was asking for help.
Yeah, it was one of the worst meetings I've had over the years. And, I wasn't expecting miracles. I just needed someone to meet me with some basic humanity. She didn't have to fix everything, really, just acknowledge me and us. She could just answer me in a normal tone with normal words, look me in the eyes and say, I will do my best to help you, or yeah, I mean, that alone can make all the difference. It's not about having all the answers, it's about showing up with presence and empathy and respect, really.
And I guess that's where identity and integrity really come in. Because when someone is sick, especially seriously ill, their sense of self is so fragile. And the way healthcare professionals speak to them or even avoid eye contact can either uphold their dignity or take it away completely.
Yeah, 100%. Both my late husband and now my boyfriend, they didn't want to know every single detail about their diagnosis. They both told the doctors, please don't rub it in. We're focusing on treatment and what we actually can do.
That's such an important nuance because we sometimes think that giving all the information is the most respectful thing, but actually respecting someone's wishes, how they want to process their illness, that's real respect. And I mean, just hearing the word, "you got cancer," might just be enough.
Yeah.
For
That's it.
some,
And
I mean.
yeah, we're all different. But when it comes to communication, I think just make it a routine to ask the patient, what do you want to know? How much do you want to be involved in the medical details? And also ask maybe the next of kin, how are you doing? And that one question can make someone feel human again.
There's also something here about trust, right? Like trust the patient's instincts and trust the next of kin who's been by their side 24/7. They're often the ones who know what's normal with that person and what's not. I mean, what's okay to know and not.
Yeah, and when we feel seen and heard, we can handle so much more. We find strength in that. And let's not forget, there's a lot of hope in this field, especially with cancer. There's constant research happening. Treatment is evolving rapidly. So much process is being made all the time here.
Yeah, that actually gives me chills because, you have to have hope, and just knowing that they're doing so much progress is so positive. Because I
Mm,
think people often associate cancer with despair, but the truth is there's reason to hope, and focusing on that and what's possible can be such a powerful anchor.
I truly can. And therefore, still to this day, we believe in progress. We plan for the future. We live every day fully because we know what's on stake, of course, but we also know that science is on our side more than ever before.
So, if you're listening to this and you're walking through illness right now, either yourself or with someone you love, just know that your identity and integrity matter. You deserve to be treated like the whole complex human that you are, not just a case or a chart.
Exactly. Because you're not just a diagnosis, you're still you. And being sick or being next of kin doesn't take that away. But sometimes we need to remind the world, doctors and nurses, and ourselves of that. And I just have to say, please never ask a cancer patient about their prognosis. Seriously, what's your prognosis is often my answer to this. Because that question comes up far too often, both now and back then. And honestly, what are you even going to do with that information? It's not helpful. It just puts pressure on someone who's already going through enough.
Right.
And don't even get me started on those first time introductions where people go, "Oh, are you the one who's sick?" Like, I mean, come on. I really want to punch people in the face sometimes hard when they meet us or him like that. Can we just be normal, be kind, be human? That's really all it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on. You can't say that just to rub it in. But
Yeah.
I guess maybe some people think or they mean well, but sometimes they're just plain thoughtless. It's like they forget they're talking to an actual person and not a diagnosis. Curiosity is human, sure, but basic compassion should always come first, always.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, let the person who is actually sick bring it up if they want to share.
Yeah, for sure. But I have to ask because I know you had some rough hospital experiences over the years. Are there any moments that really stayed with you other than, the magician nurse that comes to mind that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had many experiences, both good and bad, and I have to say most of them have actually been positive. There are so many incredible people working in healthcare, true angels in white coats, I would say. But as I said before, the negative ones tends to stick with you. I mean, they just do.
Yeah, strange how that works, isn't it? You can get so much right, and still that one bad moment can overshadow it all.
Exactly. I remember back in 2014, there was such a huge difference between the staff at our local hospital and those working at the larger, more specialized hospital we were transferred to. We were met with so much confidence and professionalism at the bigger hospital. It was so reassuring.
Yeah.
But I have to say, walking into our local hospital with my very sick husband at the time, where I had actually worked before, that was really tough. I knew so many of the staff, of course, and that added a whole other layer to the experience. In some ways, getting transferred out felt like a relief. It was emotionally exhausting to face all those familiar, sympathetic faces every day, and I kept thinking they probably read his journal.
Yeah.
So, in a way, they knew more than we did at the time. And I was in full on survival mode at the time, also, like hyper aware. I watched every facial expression, every tiny sign in their body language, trying to figure out what people weren't saying. And it drained me. And the worst part, I'd worked behind the scenes. I know how people talk. I know what happens in those staff rooms. So I couldn't help but feel like everyone was looking at us with pity. And that was really hard to carry. And that alone felt like a huge burden. And sometimes having a nursing background isn't an advantage at all. It can actually make everything feel heavier.
That makes so much sense. But beside the fact that you knew them and all that, do you think the biggest difference came down to the fact that the larger hospital is more specialized in cancer care?
Definitely. I think a big part of it was that they're so used to dealing with cancer patients. I mean, they see it every day. And my husband was really sick when we got there. We were terrified, but they welcomed us in such a calm and competent way. And the cancer unit was also smaller, more intimate. There were fewer nurses to relate to, which actually helped. It felt more personal, less overwhelming, and that made a big difference
Yeah.
also. But then, between the chemo treatments, he'd often get infections, and we had to go back to the local hospital. And honestly, some of those visits were really hard. I felt helpless. And there are a lot of angels there too, for sure. But it was kind of complicated, especially because I had worked there. I knew the system, I knew the people, and somehow that made it harder. It blurred the lines between personal and professional in a way, and it just messed with my head a bit.
Yeah. I can imagine that must have been really tough.
Oh, it was. But remember, this is my story and my experiences, and I am forever grateful that we have a hospital nearby and that we got the help we needed, because we did for sure. So I don't want to dwell too much on the negative stories. I'd rather focus on how things should be, from my perspective, anyways. And by that, I mean how patients and their families deserve to be met with empathy, clarity, and a sense of calm. And that can make all the difference in crisis.
Yeah. Just to be seen as a person, really.
Mm.
And you actually wrote your bachelor thesis about this, didn't you? Back in the days about next of kin care. And you
I,
got top score, I must say. Also, of course, I have to
I
include that.
did, yes. Thank you. But honestly, back then, there wasn't that much research available. It was kind of surprising for me. But what I found really underlined how important next of kin care is, how crucial it is to acknowledge and include those who stand beside the patient.
Yeah,
Because we suffer too, often in silence, and we need to be seen.
for sure. Because when someone close to you is sick, you carry so much emotionally, practically, and, everything. And still, it's like you're not really part of the picture sometimes.
That's exactly how it is. And I've seen both ends of that spectrum, when next of kin are included and when they're not, or completely overlooked. And I've talked about how my husband found out about his diagnosis, the full extent of it, and that experience was just not okay. But sadly, there is more stories about this.
Yeah. And it kind of happened again with your boyfriend too, right?
Yeah, it did. And I must say, at the hospital where he gets his cancer treatment, they're just incredible, true angels, so understanding, so genuine, and they really see the patient, not just the illness. They meet you with respect and presence. But then last year, he was rushed to an emergency surgery at our local hospital, and the difference in approach was really noticeable. Of course, I understand that they have to mention the cancer, it's part of the overall picture, but their main focus should have been on the operation and the post op infection. That was the acute, immediate concern, the thing we were dealing with right then and there. Instead, every single visit after the surgery, it was like this wall of white coats standing around the bed, reminding us of the cancer diagnosis over and over again. And we already knew. We lived with that reality every day. And by constantly bringing it up, they took away the little hope we were holding on to back then. And that's just not necessary. I feel really strongly about that. And honestly, I wanted to punch them in the face also, there and then.
Yeah, that sounds so intense when you're laying there and so unnecessary. I do understand the feeling that you have towards it.
Good. And yes, it was intense. And they weren't even the ones treating his cancer. And that's being handled at a bigger hospital, as I said. But the local team, they even talked about sending him home with a PCA pump as if we were just supposed to prepare for the end right there and then. And we had to actually say out loud, both to the doctors and the nurses, that this is not okay. Just stop. And thankfully they did.
Wow. I can't believe that you had to advocate like that in the middle of an emergency and a crisis. It must have been terrifying.
It was for sure, absolutely terrifying. And I know that they also need to take consideration of the main illness for sure. But back then, they should have held their focus on the post-operation situation, or at least ask the patient how he wanted to be informed. Because here's the thing, he recovered after the operation. He could continue his cancer treatment. We went on trips. We've had beautiful life-filled days since then. His body healed from the operation and the following infections. His mind is sharp and he's alive and living.
He sure is. And that's amazing. But also such a reminder that what professionals say in those vulnerable moments really matter. They almost took that hope from you. And I think that's important, that you think about the patient first, not just blurt out whatever they're thinking that what's going to happen, because it didn't.
No, it didn't. And we're not naive. We know that having surgery while battling cancer comes with risk. We knew that. But the cancer didn't spread. He made it. And I just want to say to any doctors or nurses listening, never take away someone's hope. Be honest, yes, and be real. But don't forget to be human also. Ask the person in front of you, how much do you want to know? And remember, we sit there every day waiting for this visit, and we are terrified.
That's such a powerful point because we're not all the same. Some people want every single detail, and some need space to breathe and process. It's about humanity, isn't it? And it's also a different story when you're admitted with cancer. It's not just an infection or a broken leg, so you know the severity of it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's about integrity and treating people and patients and their family members with respect, seeing them, listening. It doesn't take a miracle to do that, just a moment of presence.
That is so true.
I want to give an example of how it can be when it's really good, because I hear myself talking now and I feel like I'm being too negative, especially about our local hospital. And that's not fair. There are so many kind, skilled, and dedicated people there too.
Yeah, for sure.
So, back when my husband was admitted, I remember feeling so invisible. I was always there, 9, 10 hours every day for a month, sitting by his side. And some days I felt like part of the furniture or something, like I was just blending into the wall. And I know, of course, that he was the main focus for sure. But then one day this nurse came into the room, and honestly, she's an angel in white. And after we've been talking a bit about my boyfriend and the whole situation, she looked me straight in the eyes and just asked, "But how are you doing?" And I think I just broke completely. I think I started crying immediately and poured everything out, our story, my fears, and how exhausted I was. And, she shared a bit of her story too. And I know some might say that's not professional, but I couldn't disagree more. That moment of honesty, that human, I get emotional talking about this.
Yeah, get it.
Um,
Just thinking back about it.
I know. But that human connection, it really meant everything. And who?
Take your time.
Yeah, just have to cut this, I think. We ended up sitting there, both of us, with tears in our eyes. And for me, it was the first time in a long while I felt seen, like truly seen and safe, like I could finally exhale. And she managed to give me the strength I needed at that exact moment. And she gave us hope, both me and my boyfriend, by sharing some of her story. And we actually kept in touch after that till this day. She's just one of those people who's doing exactly what she's meant to do. And she will always have a special place in our hearts, for sure.
Wow. I know you said you're getting emotional, but that was really, emotional just hearing that story, because it's wild how one moment one person really sees you, and it can break through all the noise and stress and the loneliness. And it says so much about how powerful human connection can be, especially in a healthcare setting. And that nurse probably had no idea she would leave such a lasting impact, but she did.
She truly did.
And it also highlights what we've been talking about, how important it is that caregivers, nurses, doctors take the time to notice not just the patient, but the people around them too. You weren't just the girlfriend in that moment. You were a human being carrying so much, and she honored that. And we need more of that. So thank you for sharing all of this, Nina. I think it's something that will really stay with people who listen, and maybe even help someone get better care down the road just because of these conversations.
That's the hope, always the hope.
You said something really important earlier about not just focusing on what's wrong, but also how things should be. Can we talk more about that? I know there's actually a lot of research backing up what you felt on your own body and heart.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's not just my personal experience. There's now a lot of science supporting the importance of next of kin care. Studies show that when family members feel included and seen, it doesn't just reduce their own stress and trauma, but it can actually improve outcomes for the patient too. And that is huge. Because think about it, when someone you love is sick, you become this unofficial team member in a way. You're maybe the one who remembers what the doctor said when your partner was too overwhelmed to take it in, and you're the one adjusting pillows, managing meds, giving comfort. And that role should be acknowledged and respected, I think.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, right? That is such an important role, to be there to get all the information that there might be way too much going on in that person's head to even think about, storing that information. So that's a good point. And I think sometimes the system forgets that the patient doesn't come alone. They bring their people with them who they feel safe with. And on that note, what about the emotional side for the patients themselves? I mean, cancer care is more than chemo and scans, it's about mental health too.
Yes, it truly is. Because so often the focus is only on the body, but cancer is an emotional earthquake too. And science, of course, backs this up and says that patients with strong psychosocial support tend to do better, actually, and they cope better. They have fewer complications, even potentially better survival rates. But to get that support, you need to be met like a human being, not like a diagnosis on two legs.
I love that. Not a diagnosis on two legs, for sure. And
Mhm.
I've heard you say this before, how important it is to ask what the patient wants to know. That feels so simple, but kind of revolutionary.
It really is. Because some people want every detail. Others, like my husband and now also my boyfriend, want to focus on life, not death. So when doctors come in and throw around worst case scenarios or repeat things like a script without even asking what the patient can handle, it can crush hope. And hope is essential. It's not denial, it's survival.
Totally. And hope doesn't mean lying or sugarcoating. It's about offering space for possibility. And I remember reading that the World Health Organization actually includes psychosocial support as a core part of cancer care. But it still feels like it's not always practiced in real life.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it is in all the guidelines, Norwegian ones too. But implementation is lagging behind, I think. It still depends too much on who you meet and how much that person's happen to care or understand. And that's why I say presence, empathy, and respect. That's the whole foundation. Even just looking someone in the eye and saying, I see you, I hear you, it matters more than people realize.
It really does. And I know we kind of joked before that nurses and doctors aren't magicians, but sometimes just being kind, honest, and human, that is kind of magic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the real healing. I mean, even when you can't cure, you can care. And that's what stays with us long after the hospital walls disappear.
And speaking of human, I know you said before how nurses really make a difference, like the story you told us. I mean, this is important, even more than most people realize.
It really is, because nurses are the ones who are there all the time. They see everything. And when they meet both patients and next of kin with calmness, empathy, and real presence, it changes everything. But sadly, I've also seen the other side, nurses and doctors who seem, I don't know, insecure or uncomfortable, like they don't actually know how to meet people who are in crisis. And I get it, it's hard. But especially if you work in cancer care, you have to be ready to meet people in life or death situation. You can't treat it like someone just broke a leg, as you said.
Yeah, there's no cast for grief or fear, is there?
No,
But I think that's so important because we don't talk enough about the emotional competence needed to work in this kind of care. It's not just technical skills, it's people skills, I guess.
exactly. And of course, there's science on this too, because research shows that the way nurses communicate and connect with patients directly impacts things like trust, emotional well being, and even treatment adherence. If a patient feels safe and respected, they are more likely to ask questions, speak up, follow instructions, they cope better, they feel more in control. And for family members also, it can make the difference between feeling like a burden or feeling like a partner in care.
Yeah. And you said this before too, that it's not about fixing everything, it's about being present and about dignity.
Dignity is huge. You're so vulnerable when you're sick or when someone you love is sick, and sometimes it takes just one small moment to either preserve that dignity or take it away completely. And I remember these small moments, just the way a nurse adjusted my husband's or my boyfriend's blanket, looked him in the eyes, and asked how he was feeling. You know, if they offered us both coffee. It often made me tear up because it was kindness, no clinical distance. But I've also seen nurses who can't even say hello when they enter the room. They avoid eye contact and they clearly don't know what to say, so they just, I don't know, shut down. And that creates more distance and even more fear.
Yeah, I mean, I know we say that everyone can have a bad day, but in those situations, you really can't.
You just
You can
can't.
still say hi and see people for who they are, you know?
Yeah, you cannot bring your bad day to work when you're a nurse or a healthcare profession. You just can't.
No. And the thing is, you remember those moments for years.
Yeah, it really sticks with you. And that's why emotional readiness should be part of training, especially in cancer care. You can't go into this field and not be prepared for pain and death and raw emotions because this is real life. This is someone's everything lying in that bed. I get emotional from this too, but you have to remember that always.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's why it means so much when someone does get it right. Because when you're the next of kin, you're constantly trying to be strong for them. And I know you're thinking about that now. But you're also so exhausted and you're scared and you're heartbroken. And it's often such a lonely place to be, I guess.
Yes. Like I've said, I felt so invisible at times, like my pain didn't matter because I wasn't the patient. But we carry so much, you know. We're the ones trying to remember all the details. As I said, we ask questions and comfort and calm and advocate, and then we drive home and fall apart or sit in a hospital chair all night, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. And that's why being seen as next of kin isn't just a nice extra, it's essential. We're part of the care team. We need information, we need empathy, and sometimes we just need someone to acknowledge that and say, I see you.
You're doing your best. And that can be the thing that gives you the strength to keep going. Just a little acknowledgement. It makes me think about resilience, not in the, Instagram way, but the real life version, where you somehow keep showing up even when you feel like you're crumbling.
Yeah, and the strange thing is, you don't always know where the strength comes from. Sometimes it's love, as for me. Sometimes it's routine. Sometimes it's hope, however small maybe for some. But I really believe that when the people around you, especially in healthcare, acknowledge your reality, that strength gets a little easier to find out. It doesn't take the pain away, but it holds you up just a little.
And I think that's the takeaway, right? That care is about so much more than medicine. It's about the human experience. The more we understand that, whether we're professionals, friends, or just a fellow human being, the more we can actually support each other through illnesses and crisis.
That's exactly it. And let's never forget that even in hospitals, especially in hospitals, people need to be met as people, not cases, not diagnoses. And next of kin are not in the way. We are part of the story, part of the healing, and part of the grief, and sometimes part of the strength the patient leans on the most.
So, whether you're a nurse, a doctor, a friend, or someone who's been through this yourself, we hope this conversation has given you something to think about, maybe even something to carry with you.
Because at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen, whether we're the patient or the one sitting silently beside them. And we hope this episode can be a little reminder of how much power there is in simple presence, in kindness, and in just meeting people where they are.
Thank you for listening. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've been a next of kin or if you work in healthcare, what are your experiences? What made a difference for you?
Take care of yourselves and each other, and remember, being strong doesn't mean doing it all alone. It's okay to ask for support.
We are so grateful to have you all with us on this journey. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Nina had a dream, all black and white. We were talking in English, yeah, that ain't right. Two Norwegian sisters miles apart, but that dream lit a fire, put a mic to the heart. Katrine's in the States, Nina's back home. Two voices, one mission through the microphone. Grief in life, the highs and the lows. We hit record, where the file go? Oh, we fumble, we stumble, but baby we shine. Lost the intro, never mind. Wi-Fi shaky, cables crossed, but our hearts stay strong, no moment lost. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. Grief walks in, pulls up a chair, says I'll stay a while, yeah, life ain't fair. But we mix it with laughter, a toast in hand, finding light where the dark still stands. Ba-da-da-boo-doo, is this thing on? Mic's on mute, oh well, move along. Ba-ba-dee, ba-ba-da, take two. Oops, too late, let's laugh it through. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. So plug in, lean in, let's take our time. No script, no filters, just rhythm and rhyme. We're here, we're now, we're in our prime. Two sisters, one dream, on the mic we shine.